That's the cool thing about creative finances. There's so many ways, there's so many avenues, there's so many solutions.
Hello and welcome to Hello Haymarket, the podcast where we talk about how to build wealth through real estate. My name is Elize Hill.
And I'm Daniel Nyce.
And we are real estate agents, homeowners, and investors here to share our journey and the tips and tricks we learn along the way with you.
All right, so today we're going to be talking to Mr. Mike Cappello. Mike, welcome. Thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
Appreciate it.
Now, we brought Mike on to talk about a type of creative financing called subject to financing, right? Now, Mike, out of everyone that I know in real estate, knows the most about this subject, right? And going into 2023, the talk around the water cooler here at the office is that creative financing is going to become more and more valuable and not less valuable. So, Mike, welcome to today's podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, and how you came into learning about Subject to.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. Excited to be here. Excited to talk about Subject to. It is definitely a buzzword of the last probably 6 months to a year, with kind of the shift in the market and what we're seeing with more inventory and properties sitting on the market. It's a good way to help your sellers and as an investor to buy property. Right now, I'm working as an investor. We're investing mostly in Front Royal, and we are buying cash. We're buying with creative finance, subject to seller finance, and just looking for opportunities to help sellers that may be in difficult situations. So Sub 2 is one way we do that. Excited to answer some questions and talk a little bit more about it.
Perfect. All right. So one of the things I wanted to start off with was just defining terms, right? So for those out there who don't understand creative finance, maybe what is that? And then we can delve deeper into specifically what subject to is.
Sure. Yeah. Creative finance is just sort of an overarching term for a little bit of non-traditional ways to buy property, sell property, acquire property. And Sub 2, to me, Sub 2 is just one tool in the tool belt of creative finance as a whole.
My understanding of Sub 2 financing is that I see that interest rates out there right now are in the 7s or 8s or whatever we're afraid they may even rise to, right?
Yeah.
And I find a homeowner who has a mortgage with a 30-year fixed rate, maybe 3%.
Yep.
And I find that attractive. I'm like, I wish I had that.
Yep.
Well, what if instead of buying the house, paying off his mortgage, and obtaining my own fresh new mortgage at the 7% rate, what if I just agreed to pay his existing mortgage and keep it in place in his name? Is that basically Sub 2?
Yeah, that is Sub 2. Sub 2 is just taking over an existing mortgage instead of going to a bank and getting a new loan at 8% or whatever the interest rate's going to be in the next 6 months. You're just taking over that existing seller's loan and making payments on it. Essentially, you become the owner of the property, but you're paying his or her mortgage. A really good analogy for this that one of my mentors uses is he compares subject to buying groceries, basically. So everybody goes to the store, you buy groceries, right? When you go to the store and buy groceries and you put those groceries onto a credit card, you're creating a debt with American Express, with Bank of America, whoever it is, it doesn't matter. Now, when you walk out of that grocery store, you receive a receipt. And so essentially we've created a debt and you've created essentially your receipt, your proof of ownership. And it's just basically the same thing as buying a property Sub 2. It doesn't matter who holds the debt, but you now have control of the property, control of the asset. You own the property, you're paying the debt of the seller, and the debt remains in their name.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Now, are there different ways of setting this up? So, for example, I've heard of people who set up a like a mortgage. I don't know what the term is. Like, there's a mortgage company that pays the debt for you.
Yeah.
Is that the only way of doing Sub 2? There always has to be.
I think it's the best way to do it. It's the safest way. The mortgage servicing company, essentially, or a servicing company. So you're not taking over the seller's payment and going onto their account and paying their mortgage payment through Wells Fargo or whatever through their account. You set up essentially a middleman who does all the transacting. So you send payment to the servicing company, and then the servicing company pays the bill. And if there's any other debts that need to be paid, they pay those and make sure that the seller receives notification that the payment's been made. And there are a lot of professional companies out there that are doing that.
So let's say I know a guy who wants to sell this way, and I'm the one who wants to buy this way, right? So I've already got the house and the seller in mind, but I don't know the process. And I call you up and I say, hey, Mike, I've heard of this fancy thing called Sub 2, but I don't know how to exactly do it.
Yeah.
I've already agreed to a price with the seller. And we're ready to rock. What's my next step? What would you help me do?
The best way and what I would recommend doing is either doing a partnership, so bringing in somebody that's a subject expert, somebody that's done these types of transactions, because there is a lot of nuance to it. It's not overly complicated, but there's certain paperwork that you need in place. There's certain documents that you need. There's certain procedures that you need to go through. You need to find a title company that'll be willing to do a subject to transaction, because not every title company is going to do a subject to transaction. So just having those resources lined up, I would definitely recommend finding somebody that is doing subject to transactions. There's several ways you can structure a deal. Either you pay them some kind of assignment fee, or you do a JV with them to learn and understand and get some of the paperwork that you need and those types of things.
So this is very high level stuff. Like, it's all going above my head, to be quite frank.
Yeah.
So why would a buyer opt for this?
Sure. Yeah, that's one of the questions that I hear a lot. Why would I want to do this? The main reason and the biggest reason is to make more money in this market. That's going to be the number one reason that I'm going to tell a buyer why you should do this. I can pay you more money if I can take over your loan and make payments on your loan, because that's going to save me the trouble of, number one, having to go to a bank, going through the process of acquiring a new loan, having a new loan in my name, having a higher interest rate. All these things are very valuable to me. So I'd be much more willing to pay you more money, whereas if I'm just going to offer you cash to get out of the property, that offer is going to be much lower, because I'm taking on a lot more risk in that situation. In this situation, you've already got the loan. Presumably you have a lower interest rate, and you're going to save me a lot of hassle with having to go through a bank to acquire the property and take ownership of it.
So then another question, the buyer is not putting their name on the loan?
No, the loan stays in the seller's name,
Okay.
and then the property is deeded then to the buyer of the property. The deed is in the buyer's name, and the loan stays in the seller's name.
So who does the buyer pay the money to then?
Right. The buyer will set up a servicing company. You'll make payments to the servicing company, and the servicing company will take care of paying the mortgage, paying any sort of taxes, paying any other fees or any other HOA or anything like that. So they're kind of like an intermediary between the buyer and the seller. Essentially, the seller doesn't really have anything to do at that point. They're basically done with the property for all intents and purposes, aside from the fact that the mortgage is remaining in their name.
Yeah. So then going to the seller side, I'm hearing that it's beneficial for the seller because they're getting offered more
money
more
potentially,
money for the property.
Right.
Because from the perspective of the seller, my understanding is you want to sell for the highest price you can, right? When I'm thinking as a seller how to sell for the highest dollar amount, it's easier to sell if you have more potential buyers. And at 7%, there's less buyers than at 3% interest rates, right? So if my existing loan is at a lower rate than the prevailing market rates, you would potentially be able to sell for more because people can afford more, right?
Yep. I mean, that's exactly it. So you're providing that value to the buyer as the seller. Say, hey, I've got this 2.5% interest rate here. My property's been sitting on the market. I can't find a buyer because I bought it 2 years ago at the top of the market, and now I need to sell it and move because of my job. I have this great interest rate, but I need a certain number to get out of this place. Otherwise, I'm going to end up writing a check to get out of here. I'm going to have to pay closing costs. I'm going to have to pay, realtor fees. You can find a buyer that's going to come in, take over your mortgage sub 2, take over your great interest rate, and it's a win-win really for both sides.
Yeah.
So I have a question. This is not the same as assuming a loan.
No. This is not the same as assuming a loan. In an assumption, the loan is going into the buyer's name at that point.
Okay.
In the sub 2, the loan stays in the seller's name.
So then the buyer is paying like a third-party company that is paying the mortgage.
Yeah, paying the
The
mortgage
loan
servicing
seller.
company,
Right.
right? And it doesn't really particularly matter what kind of loan the seller has,
No.
right? Just because it's a VA loan doesn't mean you have to have a VA buyer anymore to get the credit, because it stays in the seller's name.
Right.
So the only thing that's happening is you're just contracting with the servicing company to make sure the payment happens.
Exactly, yeah. And again, the seller will receive notification from the servicing company that payment's been made. And there are some other protections there for the seller as well. There's what's called a performance deed. It's really a performance clause.
So is that the type of deed that we get? Is it a new?
No, essentially it is a clause in the paperwork that says if the buyer fails to pay the mortgage, even for a month, the seller is then allowed to basically take that property back over. They don't have to, but they can step in without any questions, without any court, without anything, and they reassume ownership of the property.
But the house is in the buyer, or the title is in the buyer's name.
Well, so that's why this.
That's
clause
why this clause
exists.
is in there.
It's
Essentially
in
reverts the deed back to the seller.
And does that exist in the contract, or does that exist in the deed?
It's in the contract. It's in
Okay.
the contract.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So then are there any repercussions for this? Because I feel like this is like a... Since everything's going over my head, it's
Yeah.
like, am I going to miss something? Is there something
No.
that I need to be aware of if this happens, either buyer or a lister?
Yeah, the only other thing, there are certain things, but one major other thing to discuss is the due on sale clause. This is another big topic that's important for both the buyer and the seller to understand. When you assume a mortgage as a buyer, when you let somebody assume your mortgage as a seller, ideally the mortgage company they don't care. The mortgage is being paid. They don't care who's paying it. They don't care where that money's coming from. If for some reason they were to find out either the note's not performing, the payments aren't being made, or if the seller were for some reason to notify the mortgage company that they're no longer the owners of the property, the mortgage company can essentially call that note due at that point by using what's called the due on sale clause, meaning they find out that I own the property, but the seller's still on the mortgage. They call that note due, meaning I have to pay that entire note. Mm-hmm. Basically, it's due, like within
You
60
as the
days
seller.
as the buyer, because I'm the one that owns the property now. Sorry if that's a little bit...
That is confusing because
Yeah.
when it says due on sale, I would imagine the person that they have a contract with is the bank has a contract with the person who borrowed the money, the seller.
Right, but they no longer own the property. The property's owned by the buyer.
Right.
So
But isn't the
they're-
property just collateral?
No, the property is 100% owned by the buyer. The buyer owns the property. They are deeded the property.
Right.
The mortgage, the debt is still is in the seller's name,
Right.
but the debt is on the house. The debt is not on the buyer. The collateral is the house.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Right.
So in other words, so when they're saying when it's due on sale, if they were hypothetically to call it due, right? Like let's say,
Yeah. It happened.
Yeah,
It's
like
not like it's not happened. It does happen. But as a buyer, there are ways to you can then refinance. You can either maybe pay the house off. You can find a private lender. There are ways to sort it out, and usually have some time to figure those things out.
Yeah.
But it's pretty rare. Again, a mortgage company is not going to want to stop a performing note. Right.
Right.
They don't care
Yeah.
who's making the payments.
Yeah.
They just want
And
them to be
maybe as
made.
best practice, don't call them up and alert them either.
That is in the contract. That is in the purchase agreement between the buyer and the seller, basically saying, hey, seller, we're agreeing this is happening, right? Let's not go back to the mortgage company and say, I no longer own this property.
Yeah.
Because then they might call that note due at that point.
Yeah.
But
So I've got a scenario for you. Let's
Sure.
say we find a seller and the house is maybe market value $300,000, right?
Mhm.
And the mortgage is like $200,000, and there's that $100,000 gap.
Yeah.
Do you ever have a scenario where you actually have you're assuming that $200,000 note, but then there's also the $100,000 gap that maybe you are agreeing to pay above and beyond that note?
Mhm.
Is that something that then gets financed from a third party? How would you handle that?
Yeah, there's, again, the beautiful thing about creative finance is there's no right way or wrong way. There's just what makes sense for both parties. So one way you could structure it would be what we call a hybrid deal. You could take over that $200K subject to, maybe the seller would be willing to seller finance you that second 100. Maybe they don't need the cash right away. It's an investment property, or they have other plans. They're not going to buy another property. They don't need the $100K right away. It's an opportunity for them to potentially make a little bit more money, because you can then turn them into the bank. So you say, hey, I'll take over your $200K mortgage, and then you can seller finance me the other $100K. I'll give you $10K down. That other $90K, I'll make payments to you over the next X amount of years, and I'll even pay you some interest too, so you can make a little bit more money.
Yeah.
You could go to a private lender, and if they said, no, I need that $100K, like I got to go move, I got bills to pay, I got debt to pay. Go to a private lender and work out a deal to pay them off their $100K, then you take over the rest. And then your servicing company is then paying your private lender, whatever that monthly payment is or whatever that monthly interest is. So that's the cool thing about creative finances. There's so many ways, there's so many avenues, there's so many solutions.
Yeah. So with the investors who are using this strategy that you've seen, do you feel like they favor one type of use for the property over and above the rest? Like, is it primarily used for Airbnbs or long-term rentals,
Sure.
or is it very diverse?
No, I think it just depends on the investor. What's their exit strategy? What are they into? Right now we're buying and holding as Airbnbs because that's what we like, and we've found a good market for it. A lot of people will wrap them, or they'll do lease options, or they'll do wholesale. You can wholesale a sub-2 just like you can wholesale like a cash deal. So it really just depends on your exit strategy. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to do it. A lot of people want to have their end in mind. What's my exit strategy before they even go into that deal? I want to know this is either what I want to do with it or have a few different ways of exiting that deal.
Well, I've been sitting here listening to you talk, and I've seen, I can't not see your hat, right? SellSimpli. So what is that? And tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you noticing. SellSimpli is our investment business, and right now we're focused on Front Royal, but we have hopes of expanding from there, kind of testing that market. We really like it. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. SellSimpli is a investment company. So we're looking to buy property, we're looking to wholesale property, we're looking to flip property. I consider myself not so much an investor, but more of just a problem solver. Put me in front of a seller. I want to understand their story. I want to understand their background. I want to understand their problems, and I want to be able to provide them a solution, whether that's sub-2, whether that's seller finance, whether that's sending them to an agent, if that's the best way to do it. It's just about understanding people and understanding their problems and finding the solutions for them. So that's what SellSimpli is to me, and I'm really excited about it. I just like the challenge of figuring out the best way to help people.
Who do you help and why? Are you talking mostly to, who would you consider your clientele? Is it the distressed seller, or is it the investor client? What are you?
No, I think what they're doing is they're servicing those who know they need to sell their houses, but they have unique situations where they're like, I don't know if a regular realtor is going to be able to help.
Right.
So that sounds like a realtor without a license is what it sounds like. But I know you're a licensed realtor.
Yeah, I mean, it's really any seller. It's not necessarily just distressed sellers. That is a big avatar of ours, is going after distressed sellers. But it could be any seller that has a need to sell a property that doesn't want to sell a traditional way with a real estate agent. Either they need a fast transaction. Sometimes we can close in 2 weeks. And they don't want to have an open house and have people in and out of their property and have to pay realtor fees and pay closing costs. And a lot of times we will pay those things. It's just another avenue for sellers that don't necessarily want to sell on market.
To me, it sounds very similar to just being an agent, right? But a very niched down, focused agent on helping sell in unconventional ways.
Yeah.
Does that?
Yeah, and it is. Anybody can do it too.
It's like agent plus.
It is. That's exactly what it is. I mean, it's just another tool. My pitch to agents would be understand seller finance, understand sub-2, understand novation and all these creative finance things, because you can do it too. It's not just investors that can do it. Anybody can do this.
And you created SellSimpli, right?
Yeah.
And do you have partners, or is it a one-man show?
No, I mean, it is in the sense that I'm the one right now that's doing a lot of the appointments and meeting with sellers and doing that. But Rob's obviously involved. He's helping me, get off the ground, and we're working together on structuring deals and buying properties together, and a lot of the exciting stuff that he's involved with.
And do you have a vision for the next couple of years?
Yeah, we're really trying to saturate Front Royal market right now. Be the go-to buyers in Front Royal. I'm connecting with agents. I'm looking for these unconventional deals. We want to buy a lot of property right now. I think sub-2 and seller finance opens up so many doors for us to acquire property right now. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of properties that are sitting on the market where we could come in and provide solutions to people and be their go-to for these quote-unquote problem properties. Either they're sitting or the seller's in pre-foreclosure. There's so many different situations where we can help out, where we can provide solutions.
Well, Elize and I are thinking about buying a Front Royal.
Yeah, you should.
Because right now we're right at that turning point in our agent career where we can still afford a USDA loan without going over the limit, but we're about to.
Yeah.
And so we're like, if we're going to get a USDA loan, this is kind of the time. Yeah. But even if I look at what I can get as a rate for a USDA loan, it still looks more attractive to do a sub 2.
Yeah. We live in Leesburg right now, but business is out that way. My wife works from home, and I'm kind of like, if we came across something sub 2 that was attractive, like I would move out there and like maybe just live there for a couple years while we get the business set up. It'll just be another investment property. We can move back to Leesburg when the kids are grown and going to school and whatever. But I'm seriously thinking about it. I think I have my wife on board, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
But
that's important.
Cool. It is. And it's a really interesting market. Like the outskirts of Front Royal, there's some really cool neighborhoods. There's some really beautiful properties, and you can get a lot more obviously out there than you can, in Fairfax County, Loudoun County. Prince William County, and it's a market that hasn't quite gotten over the edge yet. Like there's still a lot of opportunity there. There's still a lot of growth there. I mean, I don't think it's like growing super fast, but I could see in the next 5-10 years, like it's going to be. Yeah, we
were at a grid event, Matt's one. And there was a guy there who had been in Haymarket for a long time, right? Haymarket, Gainesville. Right?
Yep.
And he's like, look, my biggest regret is that I sold property here, 20, 30 years ago. He's like, if I had it now, I would be rolling.
I know.
Rolling in it.
Yeah. I mean, Front Royal's like the next one. It's like, to me, you're seeing it in Winchester. Like Winchester's like blowing up.
Yeah.
And Front Royal's it's right there. It's actually closer to D.C. even than Winchester, and it just hasn't like turned over yet. And there's so much property, there's so much potential for development. The downtown area is really kind of kitschy and cool and like cute.
Area?
Yeah, you should check it out. Yeah, there's some cute little.
Would actually be interested in having like a double date with you and your wife.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Seriously, like there's some cute little coffee shops and restaurants. I mean, it's like you have to go and see it because it's just kind of like it's interesting. Like it hasn't quite turned. There's some like mix of like vacant buildings and you're kind of like, but then there's like some really cute little shops and like restaurants and stuff, and you can like see the potential there, but it just hasn't happened yet. And I'm just kind of like, we're getting in good right now.
And like another thing, what sparked our interest was the USDA thing, which led us to think more rural, which led us to think Front Royal, and then we thought, well, buy it for a year, move out, turn it into an Airbnb. But then my hang up was like Airbnb is going to affect my debt to income because it's not like I can show the lender a lease.
Yeah.
Right? But then I thought to myself, well, that's where sub 2 might come in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because then I don't need to talk to the bank.
That's it.
Right? So maybe take advantage of the USDA loan while I still can before I go over that hump.
Yeah.
And then when it's time to move out, I could sub 2 my way
We should
out.
go do a day out there, find a couple cool neighborhoods that you like, and we'll start prospecting. And
That's the funny thing, because we'll be on the MLS just looking at different houses in Front Royal.
Yeah, all the time.
And we're like, oh, this one's really nice. And then whenever we tell anyone, they're like, oh, have you like actually checked out the area? And we're like, no.
Yeah. That's how we ended up with Windy Knoll. Oddly enough, is my wife, like she just sends me properties like all the time, and usually I'll take a look at them, but mostly I ignore them. And she'll be like, oh, did you see that one? And I'm like,
that's what I do.
But she sent me Windy Knoll. I took one look at it and I saw the acreage and I saw where it was, and I was like, I jumped in the car and I like drove out there, called Rob. I was like, Rob, we gotta like jump on this thing, man.
Yeah.
Like, and it worked out. And thankfully, I think it's going to be awesome. But
how long ago was that?
God, it feels like forever ago. I guess it was in maybe June that we closed on it, but it was kind of a long process. It was a estate sale, and
was
like
that the 26-acre one?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm really excited for that.
Yeah.
You
guys got to come see that.
We're not even involved in it, and we're excited because we hear about it.
Wait till you see it. It's really cool.
Yeah, because at the meeting you guys were talking about like a possible vineyard or like whatever, and I'm like, oh, so Daniel, this is where we could have our wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it is. It's really beautiful, and the house is going to be cool. They're in the midst of deconstructing and reconstructing it, and I'm out there quite a bit, keeping an eye on things, but it's just really cool. It's beautiful. I'm excited.
So I have a question going back to subject 2.
Yeah.
Are there Is it shown like on the listing that it's subject to, or how do buyers know?
No, I mean, it's not going to be on the listing. It's something that somebody would have to essentially pitch to a seller and say, hey, would you be open to this? It's nothing new. Like, this has been going on forever. It's something that's trending right now, and it's becoming more popular. And like I said, it's kind of a buzzword right now. So I have started to see it a little bit on listings. I've seen it, potential investor special, sub 2. Like, I've started to see it come up a little bit. If you search MLS, you'll see it here and there spotted around. But no, I mean, it's essentially just something that maybe you would pitch to somebody that has a listing that's been sitting for a while, or just an off-market listing.
Yeah, I could definitely see right now, going into 2023, that this is a time for creative finance, because there was a record number of people refinancing to low rates. So there's going to be a very target-rich environment. So all of you people out there who are sellers who feel like you missed your chance to sell at the top of the market, this is for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if you refied and you have a very attractive rate, the demand out there still exists. It's just that the buyers don't feel like they could afford it anymore, right? But if they could get access to your rate, that
it becomes very attractive.
That's very attractive. Right? It makes everyone walk away from the table feeling like they won in a way that no one else in the market is.
It is the ultimate win-win. And even for agents too, I think it's so important that agents understand sub 2 and understand seller finance and understand some of these other creative finance avenues, because it's really just another way to help your seller out and create some value for them. And even as an agent, this is something that you can do. Like, these are deals that you can be involved in, and another way for you to make money, and another way for you to help people. Like, it's so important. It's so important, I think, right now for agents to understand creative finance and sub 2.
Yeah. Last thing, because I know we've already gone over our time limit and I'm using up your whole day.
No.
But this is just a selfish question for me, right? So let's say I find something in Front Royal that I think would be a good deal, right? There's enough meat on the bone, and I want to buy it just as an investment day one, turn it into an Airbnb, right? And I want to use sub 2 to help get into it, right? But to make it an Airbnb, something that you have some experience with, there's also going to be other costs not related to the mortgage servicing, right? There's going to be costs with getting it ready, furnishing it. Is someone going to have to do that with money that they already have, or is hard money, like, because you're normally, when I think of investing with hard money, you refi out. So you're not paying those rates forever.
Right.
How do you see people handling a situation like that?
Yeah, I mean, people always go to money when they think of these deals. Like, where am I going to get the money? But the money is the easy part. The money is the easy part. If you have a good deal, you're going to be able to find money. All you have to do is post it. Hey, I have this really good deal. Who's interested in making, a decent return on their money? Find a private lender. You can use hard money depending on what it is. If you have some rehab or something. I would always go the private money route first. Reach out to other investors. Reach out to, your friends, your family, and say, hey, I have this opportunity. I'm buying it sub 2. I need to put some work into it. Are you interested in making 6, 8, 10%, whatever your rate is? Get your money that way. If you have a good deal, if the numbers work, money should never be the obstacle in your way of getting into a deal.
Gotcha. So if I find something, I give you a call, right?
Call me.
You and Rob, y'all help me figure out the rest. If I bring the asset, you guys can help me figure out the rest.
As long as it's a good deal, yeah. And even if it's not, call me and let's talk about it. I just want to
make it a deal.
I would like to be a resource for all the agents on the team, and for any agent really. The big part of what I've been doing with SellSimpli is just reaching out to agents in Front Royal and saying, hey, let me be a resource to you. If you come across a seller or you have a listing that's been sitting and you can't sell it, and he needs to get out of this thing, call me. Let me talk to you. Let me talk to the seller. Let's figure out a way to do it.
So if someone were to reach out to you, how would they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Phone is the easiest way. Give me a call, 703-801-8692. Facebook, Mike Cappello, or Instagram, the Mike Cappello. That'd be great. I'd love to talk about deals. I'm passionate about investing, but I want to help people, help people out of difficult situations. Nothing has been more rewarding for me since getting into real estate, really, in the last few years, than some of these hardest situations that I've been involved with people that are in foreclosure and people that are in these difficult situations. They're so thankful just for me figuring out a way to help them out of a problem, and it's really great.
Yeah.
And that feeling is really what it's about. And I'd love to do the same thing for agents, for anybody. Like, let's figure out how to do some of these things. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for it.
I think that was a very clippable moment. It was a good moment. Bonus question for you, right? I know I keep stealing your time.
No, it's fine. No, I'm happy to.
He has all the questions. Right?
Another strategy that Elize and I have been contemplating is medium-term rentals, right? Traveling nurses, targeting like studios, 1-2 bedroom condos in more populated areas in between multiple like hospitals, right? I imagine, given that condos are usually like the hardest thing to sell, that there would be good opportunity there to try to target one of those and turn it into a performing medium-term rental. Because I feel like these condos, there's probably been some refis on them, probably people who want to sell, but they know condos are rough to sell, right? Have you seen anyone do something like that, or not having seen anything
not
like that?
firsthand. I don't really know anybody that's doing it, but I'm hearing about it. If that's what you're into, like, go, there's opportunity there, go for it. I think you're right. I think the condo market is tough. There's definitely opportunity there. There's always need for that midterm housing, especially like you said, around hospitals,
for the
around the airport,
nurses,
and anything.
around an airport.
Yeah.
Smart. Get within 20 minutes of Dulles.
The thing with real estate investing is there's so many ways. There's just so many ways, and shiny object syndrome is such a real thing. Like, I've spent the last 2 years, like, you just see what other people are doing, and you're like, oh, that's so cool, that's a good idea. Oh, this is so cool, this is so cool. You have to like pick a lane and stick. I know, I'm the same way. It's so hard, like, especially if you start following people on Instagram or you watch Bigger Pockets or you listen to podcasts or anything. Somebody's always got a cool story to tell, and they're making all this money and doing this and doing something cool, and there's just so many ways to do it. I think the important thing is to try and pick one and do it and get good at it. And
so, because I am serious about, like, if I find several opportunities, like if I'm the bird dog who goes out and finds them for these medium-term rentals, I give you a call. You help me figure out the rest in terms of, like, money and stuff?
I mean, I'll look at any deal. Like, I don't care what kind of deal it is. It might not be a deal that I'm doing, but I'm happy to look at it. I'm happy to talk through it. I'm happy to, connect you with people.
Is there a conflict between you and I doing it where you feel like you're not able to get it because I'm a realtor? What's the concern there? Because I figure you could benefit if I'm bringing you a deal.
Oh, I just mean, like, I might not be doing medium-term rentals, but that doesn't mean I can't help you analyze, take a look at the numbers and help you find money. And yeah, for sure.
Because, like, the main thing that's preventing me, in my, belief system that could be flawed, is that I would have to go to the bank to get the loan, and that's my debt to income. So this strategy to me feels like, okay, well, if I find the right condo with the right owner who's willing to sell it because they're struggling, and then I get a really good rate, right?
I'm happy to talk you through the steps to help you with the conversations, answer any questions. Get them on the phone. Like, get them on the phone. Like, call me and say, hey, I've got a question. I've got the seller on the phone. Here's the deal. How can we work this? Or call me after.
And I also don't want to abuse your time. Is there a way that you would benefit from it? Because you said I would need to find a partner to do a sub-2.
Yeah, I mean, we could partner on it.
Like, what does the partner actually bring to the table?
People don't realize that the paperwork for subject to, for seller finance, like, number one, it's expensive. Like, to have an attorney draw it up, like tens of thousands of dollars for drafts and redrafts, and it's not cheap. And people aren't just going to give it away. I mean, you could go online and look up, sub-2 paperwork. You might find something, but I would be hesitant. Like, there's a lot of risk involved, and there's a lot of money involved, and, so...
Because I was trying to figure out, like, okay, how does this work when I'm writing a contract? But it's separate paper.
It's separate paperwork.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not your traditional real estate,
contract. Yeah,
NAR paperwork contract. Or whatever. Yeah, it's going to be different paperwork. It's very specific. There's specific, like I said, performance deeds and certain protections that you need to put in there. But I have all of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Well, I think I've used up enough of your time today. I'm sure I'll be reaching out in the future when I find a bunch of condos that I'm interested in and seeing if it's a niche that maybe we could expand what we're doing together.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd love it. Like I said, I love looking at deals, so let's do it. Let's take a look, see what we can find.
Sweet.
Cool.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah,
thank you so much. And I'll talk to you soon, bud.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Elize.